I'm very excited today to welcome Leonard Scheiner of Geek Haus to Your Brand Amplified. Leonard, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Annika, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what is Geek Haus?
Geek Haus is a law firm marketing agency. There's lots of agencies out there that do pretty much the same thing that we do, but when we look at a client, most of our clients are law firms. So we've got that industry expertise, my background's in legal marketing. So we mostly help attorneys, but professional services is kind of our larger category, we could say. So we have some coaches, we have some experts, we have some authors, we have got a real estate agent, so professional services.
Okay, that's interesting. So how did you decide to start a marketing firm and then to tailor it towards professional services and more importantly, lawyers?
Great question. I like to say I was raised in law firms.
Oh.
So all of my professional career, all of my professional experience has been working with law firms in the industry, marketing them. Did a little bit of entertainment marketing, did some strategic consulting, but at the end of the day, I think my expertise and my passion is really best served in legal marketing because I believe that I'm here to help people and to support people. So the best way to do that is to help attorneys, and law touches like all corners of our life, right?
Right.
From relationships with divorce and child custody to financial, right? Whether it's a merger and acquisition or bankruptcy and kind of everything in between, right? So most people, when they're looking for an attorney or a firm to hire, they're kind of, by no fault of their own, ignorant, right? They don't know what to look for, what matters, what doesn't. And so that's an opportunity for lawyers to take advantage of clients. And that's never a great situation. So at Geek Haus, we work with amazing attorneys who feel like they know that they're a great attorney, but something's holding them back, or they know what they need to do, but they just don't have a system to put that in place. And so we do that for them, which helps those great attorneys find great clients, and those great clients get amazing service. So I like to think that Geek Haus is kind of two steps helping everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really great to see the space that you're in, because I think often law firms, like many industries, might not think of marketing and PR as important strategies, but they are. Every industry, you can't just build a website or build a business and expect people to find you, right? There are actually things that we have to put into place as marketers to make sure that the right people are finding you and that they understand that you're an expert in your field.
Definitely. Building a website is great. That I like to think of that as the road, right? You've built a road, a picture a road in the country or a highway, whatever road is enjoyable to you. But that road is nothing without cars on it, which is traffic, right? So you can build a great website, but if no one's going to it, it's like a book that's in the drawer,
Yep.
It could be a great book, but
I have many of those. I'm going to read those someday, but today.
I think we all have a few of those.
So this leads right into, I know one of the things that you really like to talk about is digital footprints and how people can show up online. So can you talk a little bit about the way that you look at digital marketing, the four corners, and then also talking about websites? We know that these days, the first time people are going to see you is often online, whether it's social media, website, something else. And so how do people make better first impressions?
Yeah. So let me separate some of that question out maybe into like two parts. So the four corners of marketing, let's chat about that to kind of give us some context, because that's going to inform all of the digital footprint work that we want to do. So The four corners of marketing are client or customer, since we primarily work with service providers and law firms. They're clients, right? A real estate agent has a client, a lawyer has a client. And so we start there. So who are we serving? And we've all heard, figure out your ideal client avatar, figure out who you serve. And a lot of times that's brushed over and there's a kind of a broad stroke, and people think, well, I serve business owners, or I serve, stay-at-home moms, or I serve whatever, right? But take that down so much deeper, right? Like if it is stay-at-home moms, then like, okay, where do they live?
Yeah.
How many kids do they have? What income does the household have, right? What other factors? And so same thing for law firms. We have many law firms come to us and say, hey, we want to serve business owners, or we want to help people with their real estate disputes. And it's like, that's wonderful, but that's such a wide buffet of people. You need to pick what diet you're on, right? And kind of pick a lane. So we start there with our client and we figure out who that 1, 2, 3, 4 ideal type of client is. From there, the next C, let me just give them all. So we've got client, cost, convenience, and communication. And so what that is so the cost factor. When you're comparing on price, it's kind of like a race to the bottom, right?
Right.
I equivalent this to like when I was buying a car, and it was like, they'll give it to me for this price, and then you take that price to the next dealer, and will you give it to me for that? And then they'll give it, then you take it to a third, and you're just working the market, right? Because that's what it is. And so the cost is something that you can always compete on, but I don't like my clients to compete on that, because if you're providing a service, you need to be compensated adequately for that service, right? So I say, price yourself how you want to, and the market will respond to that. And you can just play in a market that agrees with that. So then we look at communication. So we know who we're talking to, we know what our offer is, and now how do we communicate that? So is that by, voicemail? Is that by telegram? Is that a carrier pigeon? The methods look different, right? I had a firm just last week. They were a real estate litigation firm, and they were like, we don't really think we need to be on social. And I'm like, well, I really think your potential clients are human and they're on social. They're not on social for business, but if I'm going to a new dentist, or I'm going to a new person to do my hair, I'm going to look them up, because we're all human, right? We want to know we used to call that stalking, and now we call it internet research.
We want to see who they are. We want to read reviews. We want to,
What are people saying, right? So we'll do some internet research, and we have to have that digital footprint out there. We have to have some dust for people to look at. And so the communication portion of the 4 C's is so important, because that's how we are able to build the relationship with our clients before they even hop on a phone call, right? Who's heard that we need better copy? We need better copywriting. I need a copywriter. I've heard that so often, because copy that converts is amazing. And it's a skill. It's definitely a skill. So that's communication. Also, we'll look at not just the messaging, but like how we're delivering it, right? Like we need email addresses, we need a text message list, we need these things in order to be able to have levers, marketing levers in the business to say, I need more consultations, I need more clients, I need more people to hop into this program. So communication is definitely key. Then our last bit, we're going to go into convenience. And so convenience is really where I like to dive in, roll up the sleeves, and say, if there's a new person who's a good fit, they've got the money to invest or spend, or they're good to go.
Right.
How long and how many steps are in your process before they put their hand up saying, yes, I want to work with you? and the money arriving in your account.
Yeah.
So for lawyers, I'm going to take out like contingency type attorneys, right? But for most lawyers, whether you're billing flat fee or hourly, you need to identify the client. You've got to have a consultation with them, run a conflict check. Then we've got to get them a fee agreement. I don't know if I said that already. There's lots of steps, right? They've got to sign, they've got to pay, we've got to check, we've got to talk, we've got to approve it. It's a lot of back and forth, necessary, but it's a lot of steps, right? So when we're looking at the common person, first of all, those steps are scary.
Yeah.
Those steps are emotionally like, I'm paying thousands of dollars, or I'm committing to this relationship, right? I'm signing an agreement that's, I mean, those are sometimes 2 pages, sometimes 10 pages, right? So that's even taxing on the person just to review it, right? So they put their hand up, I want help. Now, how many steps are in that process, right? So we've avenued a few different solutions for that. Sometimes this was pre-pandemic, but we would have a signing meeting, right? So that there was someone there, like a car salesman, helping you through that process, right? Or we've also done it through automated ways like DocuSign or something like that, so that yes, they're still signing those 10 pages, but the perception is not as grueling as receiving that as a PDF. So that payment as well, do you accept credit cards or is it just by check?
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but in today's law firm world, it's not.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I've seen companies that are like, well, you can wire transfer into our account and pay for the fee, or you can send us a check. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Everything should be like easy.
Right.
Automated.
You bring up an interesting point about credit card fees too, or wire transfer fees, right? I remember I was at a firm once and working in-house as their director of marketing. And it was a very cost-conscious audience of people that we had, right? Our client base, very cost-conscious. And they were foreign. So in order to get their money from Europe, Asia, Canada, South America into the US, there was an exchange rate as well as that wire transfer fee.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably not a concern for some people, but for this audience, it was. And so our accounting team was adamant about charging those fees to the client. So your amount, your legal services are X plus these fees. And we saw so many people not convert at that stage because it was like, now it's another $200, or now it's another even $30, right? Like whatever that is, it's like that was not in the budget that they planned for. So convenience, the 4th C of marketing. How convenient is it for someone to hire you? We need to look at that. So our 4 C's, client, cost, communication, and convenience. So once we nail that down, this is our part 2 of your question.
Yeah.
Now we look at our footprint, right? So now we know who we're talking to, what we're talking about, how we're going to talk about it, and what our unique benefits are over our competitors. And so that's when we look at, great, how do we get that message out, right? Now we got to we've got the fire, what gas can we throw on it? So that looks like podcasting, press, marketing, brand awareness, etc. And so based on who the client is, or, for the listener, who are you, it's going to depend on what you want to do. So, and who you're going after, right? How you want to build that. So lots of different ways to explore with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting going back to talking about the audience, and also where your expertise and passions lie in your business, right? I worked with a law firm who didn't really know, okay, do we need marketing? Do we want social media? Do we want PR? What aspects do we want to start with? During the pandemic, we formed a little Facebook show where they would have guests come on and they would talk, because they were a law firm that specialized a lot in patents, trademarks, things like that, right? And so we would have different people come on and talk about trademarks and patents and protecting your art, whether it was music, artwork, all of those kind of things, and
Fashion.
consider it, yeah, fashion. And so it was for creative. And so that was a different take. And then out of that, they realized that there were other areas of huge opportunity, for instance, tattoo artists, right? Or even comic art. Because one of the partners in the law firm is a big Doctor Who fan, and he likes to geek out and go to all the comic conventions. And so he was seeing these areas of opportunity that other law firms weren't going to, and they were able to turn that into a huge business, because a lot of tattoo artists didn't even know they should be protecting their designs, or a lot of comic book artists didn't know like what's acceptable if it's, if you're doing fan art versus your original art. What are the boundaries? What can you sell? What can you not sell? Like, where are you infringing on somebody else's trademark? So it got into some really interesting discussions and opened up a whole new business for them, which was fantastic. And I think that's one of the things out of the pandemic is we've all had to be a little more creative and really think through what strategies are really going to work and hit the mark, especially when everybody's, to your point, like online, looking at everything because we can't go anywhere. So your digital footprint really is so important, and how you're communicating with your ideal clients or customers. Yeah.
I think I know what firm you're talking about. I watched an advertisement on your channel.
Oh.
And so that advertisement was amazing, right? They're speaking to, it was a law firm in Texas,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that firm totally was speaking to an underserved group of people, right? Think about the people at Comic-Con, right? They're creators, or like you had mentioned, a comic book artist or a tattoo artist, right? These are markets that lawyers don't think about going after. They're like, you had a car accident, okay, I'll help you. Or you're going through a divorce, I'd help you. Or, immigration, I'll help. Like we think about the regular areas, but it's actually so much more of an easy path to take when you focus in on this. And this comes back to identifying your ideal client. It's like the more you zero in, you think that you cut people out, and you do, but you're so much better at positioned and better at serving that type of client than a generalist would be, right? So that's why Geek House is niched down into professional services, more specifically law firms, is because the things that come up when clients are trying to hire law firms come up across law firms, right? Just like that law firm client who deals with comic artists, they're going to see a common thread and be able to, draft their documents differently, be able to make different moves and advise them at a higher level. Because if you don't have that knowledge in the moment when you're crafting a strategy, late advice is bad advice. So there's no excuses for not having an expert on your team to guide your ship. That's why you're hiring someone else. Yeah. You're a lawyer, go lawyer. That's what you're an expert at. Hire us or hire you to do their PR and their marketing to really make sure that everything crescendos together as it should.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that we talked about before we got on was marketing budgets. And a lot of times people don't really understand how marketing PR works necessarily and how to properly budget for it. And I think your perspective is really unique in that you look at a formula instead of a figure. Will you talk to us about that? Because I think this is something really good for our audience to keep in mind when they're looking at who to hire.
There's always going to be offers that are made to us, and we think, oh my gosh, that's a great offer, but like, I can't do that. Or how am I going to do that? Or that's not possible. And the business owner who's an entrepreneur and who understands running a business, not paying your rent or paying your mortgage, not paying for those kids' tuition, not paying for the dog to get groomed as expenses, right? But like, think about making moves for your future financial freedom and investment, right? So think about it like this. If you've got a marketing plan in front of you and you know that that marketing plan, for example, is $500 a month or $5,000 a month, right? But you know that that's going to ROI and bring in 1x, 2x, 3x, 10x, right? So I can put 500 in and maybe get 5,000 out. What if that was the situation, right? I would put 500 in every single day.
Yeah.
With the hope of getting 5,000 out, right? And even if I only got 4,500 out one day, I'd still be happy, right? Because the next day we're going to tweak some things, we're going to make it work better, and I'm going to get 10,000 out of a $500 investment.
Yeah.
So those are example numbers. I'm not income claiming. I'm not interested in being sued or hurt, but when we think about the formula behind marketing, does it ROI? That's our question. Right? So when we're working with law firms, obviously there's law firms at many different sizes. There's the solo attorneys, which I love working with because they're so invested and in love with building their firm. And then there's the partners who want to be on a boat and just take calls to maintain client relationships, maybe do some biz dev work, and they want to have their partners do all the work, right? Or they want to have the associates do the work because they've put in their dues. Now they want to be on a boat. Either situation, it's fine because it's not about who's doing the work. It's about the systems that we're putting in place. So marketing budget as your formula, does it ROI? When we're looking at press and that, a public relations type of investment, it's a different conversation. So that is more brand awareness. And I always say that brand awareness will convert in the long term. Yeah. But if you're looking for quick wins or cash injection, do not do brand awareness. If you're looking for a cash injection, do not do press. Do marketing, right? You need that ROI. So what we look at for law firms, if you've not been in the press, meaning you haven't appeared in any publications, on TV, on podcasts, anywhere else, that doesn't mean that you're not a great attorney. It just means that not many people know about you. So what's going to set you apart is that social credibility. When they say, attorney one hasn't been anywhere, but I'm looking at hiring attorney one or attorney two, and attorney two has been featured on CBS, NBC, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, what have you, Bloomberg, like that gives an immense amount of credibility, right? Take that a step further. If you're looking to hire an attorney for something specific, maybe in these publications, you've just got a quote, but on a platform like we're on right now, you can get to know the person through how they talk, how they articulate themselves, and get to know what, if that's someone that you would want to help you with your problem, because we've got solutions. So a quote in a newspaper is great. Podcast, a little bit longer form, interviews, that type of thing, let you expand and tell more of your story. Yeah. So it kind of looking at a holistic approach. If it fits for the firm, we'll look at doing those good wins, right? Like CBS and MSNBC and Fox and all the great ones, but we'll also look at how can we take the message that you have and really disseminate that into your target audiences, right? If you're a fertility attorney, we would like to have you in the press talking about fertility, what's going on, have you on the pulse. But then I'd also like to get you into some fertility or mom, wanting to be mom podcasts so that you're speaking to those people in a more in-depth way, right? So they're going to hear you on a podcast, validate you on CBS, and then come to your website, traffic, and put in the request for a consultation.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think what I think is interesting about marketing and PR is that it used to really be church and state. And I completely agree with you. One is brand awareness and one is really, KPIs and return on investment. But I also think now with integrated marketing, you can, as you said, take advantage of those interviews and you can repurpose them on your social media, on your blog, in your newsletter, on your website, so that you have those backlinks, building up your SEO, getting more people to see you and driving traffic back, resulting hopefully in more consultations and more clients. But a lot of times I will see clients who think they need PR and they actually need marketing. They actually,
Definitely.
well, no, you actually need to build up your social media presence. Your audience is here or there, and you need to do that, or you need to deliver some digital advertising, or you need to do XYZ other strategy, because just doing this is not necessarily going to drive all of that other stuff. So
Yeah.
I love the way that you laid it out for us.
Do you ever have clients come to you and they don't have their ideal client nailed down? They
Yes.
don't know what they're selling really. They're kind of unclear. They're like, well, I help people do this, right? Or I'll even hear it from attorneys like, I help new artists, right? They do copyright or I help business owners, or I help real estate investors. And it's kind of like unclear about what I'm getting, right? Like if I walked into Target or Walmart, I can look at the back of any food item and I know what's in there. Well, you've got to break that down with that level of clarity, even for a legal offer, because a confused mind will always say no.
Yeah.
So they need to know, what are they getting, right? What does it look like working together? Are we talking every week? Is it a 15-minute call? Is it an email? And really focusing in on what that is. And so before all of that, my question is, before they have that, do you ever get clients that come to you and say, I just want to be in the press and I want to, I want to do PR. But if someone saw you and came to your website, they wouldn't know how to hire you.
Yeah. All the time. And that's why, because my background was in marketing before I moved into the world of PR.
So smart.
Yeah. So my team and I put together a whole process, onboarding process, and we have form, and we ask, have you done a SWOT analysis? Please upload it. Do you know your customer personas, your brand messaging? Because to me, it always goes back to marketing. You have to have that base. You have to know your customer personas. You have to know what your messages are, and you have to have it honed in. And we need to say, like you said, do you have a website? Do we have somewhere to drive traffic to? Do you have a press kit? Do we need to refine your bio? Like all of those pieces that you have to have a really strong foundation. Now I will go out and do press releases or whatever, but I always caution people, if we don't do this foundational work, we're not going to have as strong of a message.
You're absolutely right. And that foundational work is why they are really wanting help, right?
Yeah.
They think they need PR, but what they really need is the foundation.
Yeah.
So a short story, we had a client who is with Geek Haus, and he is an amazing attorney. He's like the most personable attorney you could ever ask for. So it's like, great, like he's going to be a great person that the media is going to love. And so talking about my background also being in marketing and then expanding into PR, his ideal clients are over here in this bucket, and he wants to talk about things in the press that are over here in this other bucket.
Oh no.
Because he knows them and that's his interest, but like he delivers services that are different. And so it took a few times on a few strategy calls to share with him, like, your future clients want to see you in the press, yes, but we also want to check the box that you're being quoted as an expert on what they're hiring you for.
Exactly.
Otherwise, if I do legal marketing, but I'm going to go and be quoted about health and fitness, like I might know a thing or two, but how does that relate to like where's the strategy, right? And so much PR is unstrategized, right? And it's just, we want to appear in that publication. And that's well and good, but I will straight up tell the client, this is not correct. Like either I don't want to do those, or this wasn't what this wasn't the direction we decided on, because I know that if they talk about things that they weren't experts in, or it drives the wrong type of traffic, who failed there? Did the client fail, or did us as an agency fail?
Right.
I take that as us as an agency, because we weren't driving that ship like it should be. And with that, we let the client go off the rails and write their own strategy. No.
Yeah.
We need someone to be captioning that ship and to be directing us through the storm, which is every day. So matching what you're doing, the messaging that you have, and putting that in the right places is really, the strategy behind any good PR campaign.
Absolutely. And yeah, I've had a client before who really wanted to talk about this space, but they were an expert in this space and they were somewhat related. And she was getting asked to do a lot in her day job field, which was employee retention, HR. She really wanted to talk about mental health. I said, well, there is a connection there, but
Yeah.
you're already seen as an expert here. So do these talks that people are asking you to do, and then say, hey, I also want to weave this into the narrative, instead of turning this stuff down, because there is such, like, that's your inroad. Use what you're an expert at to get to where you want to go. And she didn't want to do that. So, in the end, it didn't work out very well, but I think that's also where you have to be willing to be honest with a client and say, this is what we can do, and this is what you can expect of us, but we can only work in as much as you're willing to work with us too.
And then I continue and I paint the picture. I say, look, if you do what you want to do, this is how this looks in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
You've got a piece of press that will be out there forever.
Mhm.
And now you're going to be subtly an expert on that forever. And that's going to be kind of like a hello, my name is tag on your brand. So that's option one. Or you could do the path that is based in strategy, and then look at what that looks like, right? So when I'm sharing with a client, I want to future pace where they are right now.
Mhm.
So like bring them forward. Like, what does that look like in a year or 3 years when you have 6, 12, 20 press placements about your topic, about your expertise,
Exactly.
squarely centered on what you are doing, on your business. Do you think that that's more powerful? Oh yeah, I think that's more powerful. Great, let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, what other tips and tricks do you want to share with our audience today?
What other tips and tricks?
That's a big question. I know.
It's a big question. I think it would go back to a website is not going to make you money.
Yeah.
But a website is key in claiming and putting your flag up in the digital space, right? Whether you meet someone at a networking event or at a family party, or you're both getting lattes in the morning. Someone's going to look up your Instagram, which has your website, or they're going to look up just straight away your website because it's part of your email, right? Everything is so connected that having a place to send people where it's a nice landing pad, and then they can choose, right? They can choose, they want to read more about you or whatever. But I've heard recently, it's kind of like I'm picking up on like cricket chirps in the ether, is that, don't focus on a website, focus on sales. And although I agree with that to a certain extent, your sales will be easier with a website. Even if there's no traffic coming to it, if you have a website and you're out there selling, people will validate you, just like getting in the press. They want to validate you in the press. The first step to your digital footprint and the digital dust is your website. It has to be.
Yeah, I agree. And it doesn't mean you have to spend tons of money on your website out of the gate, but you at least have to have a presence that speaks to who you are. That we didn't even get into like the branding side of things and like, all of that. I think there's so many things that we could unpack. That's why I love talking to other marketers. It's fun to geek out, if you will, on all of this. Well, what's next for you and your brand? You were based in Los Angeles, but your firm you have clients everywhere at this point?
Yep. So we have clients across the nation at this point, and it's exciting that we get to serve in lots of different markets, because a client, like a personal injury client in Los Angeles or New York, is very different than a personal injury firm in Milwaukee, right? Or in the middle of Oklahoma. It's very, very different. So I feel grateful and appreciative that I get to kind of look at all the different strategy and craft the strategy for clients big and small. But what we're looking to grow to is be more heavy on the education factor. And part of that is why we're here today. We're also putting on a master series, the Law Firm Growth Master Series, in August, so that attorneys who are looking to grow their firm can get advice, because so many times, like, you want to grow, but you don't know what the next step is, right? Or you don't know the best next step. And so me and the team are pulling together a huge panel of experts, and we're going to interview them each separately, everything from, of course, sales, marketing, branding. And then we're also addressing like automation and SEO and accounting and succession planning. And, law firm accounting is very different than other accounting, right? And how do we grow with that? Well, we're going to talk about that, right? So some topics that we think about in growth, but some that we don't, but they attribute to growth. So more on the education front. So look out for more about that.
Awesome. And how do people, should they go to your website or your social media to find out more?
Yep. Our website is our home real estate.
Nice.
So we're online. Our website is gogeekhaus.com. So go geek, Geek, and then house, we spell the German way, Haus. So go geekhaus, Haus.com.
Okay, wonderful. And the last thing is, do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you live by?
Ooh. I don't know who said it, but the quote, I actually don't even know if it's a quote. It's probably more of like a mantra to think of, is if you give yourself a week to do something, it'll take a week. If you gave yourself 2 weeks to do that same something, it would take 2 weeks. So my team knows this. I like to live in possibility. So it's like, okay, that'll take a week to get done. Can we do it in 3 days? Like, don't want to suffer quality, but think about collapsing timelines, because we underestimate. The quote, I think, is we underestimate what we could do in a year and overestimate what we could do in 10 years.
I like that. I probably need to work on that a little bit myself, collapsing timelines. And on that note, Leonard, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll have the full transcript on the Amplify with Annika website of the show, and also have in the show notes all of the information for people to reach out to you. And
love it. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience for listening to another week of Your Brand Amplified. I'm Annika Jackson, and I'll be back again next week.